Alright, so all these races are fire, let's talk about them. Before we hop into this ranking on the Magi species, please drop your own list in the comment section down below. Tell me what you guys think are your favorite species and your least favorite species. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, let's get into it. What's up guys, I got the pencil here, and here we are to rank the top 5 species from Magi. Now, I will admit, I gave myself some specific criteria. I was initially going to split Goy and Metal Vessel users into 2 different categories, but they're technically all Goy, and that was going to be like, well, technically, shouldn't the extra species on Almatoran all count as their own individual category? What about all these other factors? Do I include the Beastmen? I decided to just be really general. You're a Goy if you can't use magic. If you're not a magician, you're a Goy. Sucks to suck. You're a Magi if you're a Magi. That one's not that hard. You're a Finelus, both referring to the large Finelus and the small human Finelus. And you're a Jinn if you're a Jinn. If you're a god, you're a god. So on and so forth. That's about it. I was gonna get super complicated and just split up into more, but like, if you go into full semantics, this could actually be a top 10. But I didn't want to do all that, so let's just hop into number 5. Now, I really do like the Jinn. I think they are a very cool concept. One of the main reasons they fall at the bottom is because I get so little of them. Really, all their powers are cool. How they feed into their users is really, really cool. Their backstory, fantastic. All of that. But my main issue is we don't get to see a lot of them. They're always hidden. They're not really allowed to talk to their users that often. Usually it takes a Magi, such as Aladdin, to summon them out to even tell them of calamities, like the entire situation with the Black Spot right after the Magastat War. So there's so much other stuff that the Jinns could be doing. Like, I would have loved if Amon or really any of the Jinn had kept speaking with their users. Like, after they had become part of the Metal Vessel, they had decided, you know what, we're gonna see if we can advise them, teach them some of our techniques, use them more. And I'm assuming it's the Jinn that gives the abilities to even use the techniques. They probably have some mental uplink with their users in a way that they can decipher how to use the extreme magic, the lesser magic, all the stuff like that. But at the same time, I don't know, I wish we could have gotten more communication with them. They're at the bottom of the list only because despite how cool their designs are, despite how cool their powers are, we get so few Jinn characterizations, I guess. Like, we get so few characters that we actually get to know as Jinn before we move on. Like, the only character we truly know in depth that became a Jinn was Ugo. And even then, we don't necessarily know that much about Ugo. I mean, he's a cool guy. But other than that, he wasn't even a Jinn for that long. He became the guardian of the Sacred Palace very, very quickly. So, I don't know. The Jinn, they're really cool. I love the powers they provide to our main characters and other characters within the narrative. But outside of that, they serve as like the bottom of the races. The only race that I'll admit doesn't even make the list is the gods. I don't know. They just don't do anything for me. I'll be completely honest. They fall off the list because the only real gods we get are Solomon, Ugo, Sinbad, and David. But by the time we reach any of their times as godhood, we get so little of them as gods that really the main gods that we refer to are the higher ones that help Sinbad decide his fate and stuff like that. That's about it. And honestly, they aren't that interesting. But they're less interesting than the Jinn, who I don't even find that interesting because we get so little of them. But that's enough ragging on a species. Let's move on to number 4. So I really like the magicians. I do, however, they struggle, mainly because they are usually a side aspect to the Goy. And I know that's the entire point of one of the narratives, and it's one of the best, it's literally the best villain's main motivation about how the magicians only seem to exist to serve the Goy, and the magicians are prejudiced against, all that stuff. However, due to that, I mean, I don't vibe with them as hard. No, here's the thing. I love certain characters. I love Matal. I think he's a fantastic villain. Already went over that. I think Yamuraiha is a fantastic teacher for Aladdin and a very necessitative part of the narrative. I think that's great. But out of that, what other magicians do I have that aren't Magi? That's the thing. Hold on. I'm trying to like think on that. Outside of those 2 in particular, the magicians are kind of like underrepresented even in our main cast because one of our main characters is a Magi, another one of our main characters is a Goy, another one of them is a Goy, and another one's a Finelus. So we don't even have any in the main cast. The only real magician we know from Sinbad's household is Yamuraiha. The only real magician, I mean, there's Myers, but like, that's the thing. There are magicians existing in places, but considering a lot of them are like hard located, hard locked to the Magastat War, that means we don't necessarily get much of them because they're locked to one arc that's focused on way too many characters to really give a whole ton of magicians characterization. So they're sort of lacking. And I know you can technically count the Ko empire, like there are a lot of co-empire people who would technically be magicians, but they're still not enough. I think magicians are cool as a concept. That's why they're higher than the Jinn, because they're able to manipulate the fundamental forces of nature to a higher degree. Sure, all the metal vessel users can do that to a certain degree. I think that's all cool, but I love the way that the magicians are able to just take the environment and manipulate to their will. And I think that if they were given more time and more expansion, I would like them a whole lot more. But because they're not, since they're sort of limited, a whole chunk of an entire species is limited to one area in Magastat, and every other little glimpse we get of them in other places, it's literally just that, a glimpse. We don't necessarily get enough of them for me to really be like, yes, this is a really cool race that has a ton of diversity to it, wonderful, beautiful, amazing. But that's the thing, we just don't get that. They specifically made a point within the narrative that magicians are kind of rare, and due to that, they're kind of rare to look at as characters as well. So I can't give it to them. What can I say? My fault. But regardless of that, I still think magicians are cool. Wish we got more of them. But let's move on to number 3. So, the Goi are fun, in the sense that they are so radically diverse. Now, I consider metal vessel users, they fall under the Goi category, mainly because if there's an exception to the metal vessel users, which is why I couldn't explicitly make them their own specific category, because then things start to overlap. But let's just say the Goi, the regular humans, they're really darn cool. And the reason I like them so much is because they're really, really flexible in what they can do. Obviously, the Goi have a ton of amazing characters in them, from Alibaba to a majority of his household, to Sinbad, to Qasim, to the entire co-empire, basically. There are so many great ones, and I love how they're so flexible, as in the case that they can just be regular warriors, like a majority of Alibaba's household. They can get household vessels, like the case of Sinbad's household, Alibaba's household, and how they use the powers of the Jinn vessels. Then you have the metal vessel users themselves, like Alibaba and Sinbad, and the entire co-empire, basically. You have all these different levels to them, and then there's even the Goi that transform themselves to fully assimilate with their household vessels, and they become these massive monsters, but you can still tell they're human in there. That's the most hilarious thing to me. Like, one of my favorite household vessel users is honestly the pig guy from the co-empire that's in Cohen's household. I don't know, I think he's hilarious. On a reread of Magi, he just kept grabbing my attention, the way he always curls his mustache. Like, it's just fun stuff for me. Like, the Goi, due to them having so much diversity in what they can do within the narrative, it makes me like them a whole lot more, because they can fit a lot of diverse roles. Because they can be a metal vessel user, they can be a household user, they can be a regular warrior, they can be a fully assimilated household vessel user. They can do a lot. And I like that. I like the flexibility within a species. And that's the weird thing. Like, I wish I could say this ranking was like purely based on characters, but if I did purely based on characters, some things wouldn't be happening. So like characters factor in a lot, which is why I'd say the magicians, while being cool, we don't get enough of them to truly see what the diversity of the magicians could really be. Same thing, while we do see a lot of Goi, and we do see the various paths they can walk down in terms of power and evolution, all that's really, really cool, but it's not cool enough, you know what I'm saying? No, but like, legitimately, I think it's a cool idea and a very cool concept, but I wish we got, not necessarily I wish we got more, because we got a lot of it. Like, there's a ton of different variations, but the Goi as a race aren't as particularly interesting to me as the two above them for certain reasons. Like, if I were to give full weight into the characters, there are some characters in the Goi alone, like, such as a lot of the co-empire, such as Alibaba, such as Sinbad. There are a lot of characters that really, if I were going purely off character-wise, would push the Goi higher. But considering I'm trying to give a lot of weight to the species themselves and what the species can do, I really should put the Goi higher anyway, but this is just bias. I'm gonna submit it. I'm not being objective here. I'm just purely biased for the next two species. Speaking of the next two species, let's move on to number 2. Alright, so the Magi are fire. And here's the thing. The Magi are like taking a magician, putting an infinite amount of magic into them, and turning the key on. Like, they're just so great. And here's the thing. The reason I like the Magi so much is because they take the rules of the world and they bend them and they break them, because they literally are fundamentally different from the Goi. They're fundamentally different from the magicians. They're even fundamentally different from the Jinn. They're fundamentally different from a lot of the other species, because they take aspects from a lot of the other species. They're human, they're Goi. However, they're also magicians because they can wield magic. However, they're even beyond that because they can take magic directly from the Ruth. Those beloved by the Ruth that are able to basically wield infinite magic. And what I love the most is that we get to see so many different levels of the Magi race. Like, we get to see beginning of series Aladdin, who's fodder, and then we get to see a character like end of series Arba, who's a monster. Like, the range we get to see. Because one of my main issues with the metal vessel users, something I'll admit, and I'm definitely probably going to talk about longer in a video separate unto itself, is the idea that the metal vessel users, they're kind of all around the same level. Sure, they come with different powers, different designs, and stuff like that. But like, once you unlock your Jinn equip, your full body Jinn equip, you're kind of relative to every other metal vessel user. You just have different conditions that you have to fulfill and different extreme magics. But that's the only thing. It's not necessarily a definitive, like, there are characters like Sinbad who are stronger than a lot of other metal vessel users, and there are characters like Alibaba and stuff like that. But in terms of like sheer definitive, like, oh, this person's stronger than this person because of reasons, the Magi sell that so much better to me in comparison to a lot of the other races. Because take a look at someone like beginning of series Aladdin, look at beginning of series Judar. Judar was obviously stronger. And then you take someone like Yunnan, and then you look at someone like Arba. Arba was obviously stronger. It's the levels to the experience. Like, this is one of the cases where experience and knowledge and stuff like that, the abilities Magi has access to, completely changes how viable they are in battle. And it's great stuff like that, where if a Magi is able to get certain things that other Magi can't have access to, such as Aladdin getting access to Solomon's wisdom, Arba getting access to thousands of years of existence and doing nothing but learning and growing as a warrior, or Yunnan being this ultimate traveler who's done nothing but reincarnate in the same body and mind to keep growing, all this great stuff like that. I love it. I feel like it's really, really cool. And that's really the reason I like the Magi so much. They're so diverse, and they're allowed to do so much more because one of our main characters is a Magi. Technically, Judar is another main character after a certain point in the narrative, and he's a Magi. We get to see a lot of what they can do, and they really push the limits of magic, because they don't necessarily have limits to their magic. They're able to go much further beyond than a regular magician could and a regular Goy could, because they're simply beyond that. And I like seeing that. They're an extremely powerful race, but they're not my number one. Let's get right into them. Alright, so now I know I spoiled the fact that Vanillas were my favorite race like forever ago, but I still got to talk about them. Why do I like the Vanillas so much? I like them because they literally take elements from pretty much every other race except for the gosh darn Magi. Like, the Magi are the only cheat characters. Like, that's what the Magi are literally supposed to be. In my mind, the Magi are supposed to be cheat characters that necessarily aren't supposed to be beaten by regular means. However, the Vanillas are also cheat characters who aren't meant to be beaten by regular means. Like, honestly, I need more backstory on the Vanillas. Like, I want to know how they got captured, how they got put in human forms. Like, I need that, because with how powerful they are, like, when the Vanillas Corps pulled up to the Magastat War, and like Magastat was really just styling on people, only for the Vanillas to be like, magicians? More like fodder, come here, children. And they just bodied them, like actually tore through them. The magicians are these fundamental wielders of the nature of creation. They can take apart fire, water, air, all that. Didn't matter. The Vanillas simply overwhelmed them because they were that powerful. And that's what I love. The Vanillas basically take aspects from every other race. They are inherently in human form. They are living, breathing beings that have a limited amount of Magi and stuff like that. However, they are so much beyond that. They are literally transcended humans in a sense, where they are that powerful, that fast, that dangerous, that durable. Fantastic. They can wield certain elements of magic like the magicians do, whether it be through household vessels or through a metal vessel. And that's the other thing that gives them a boost. The Goy and the Jinn, those basically, that combination of Vanillas is basically a super Goy wielding a metal vessel. Mu is dangerous, because my man, while being a half-breed, he's still extremely powerful because he's even part Vanillas, and then he has Barbados on top of that. He literally gets the best of both worlds. He gets to be one of the strongest human beings out there because of his native biology, and then he gets one of the strongest metal vessels out there that just allows him to use strength magic. And it's dumb, but it's wonderful and it's amazing. And I love the fact that basically every person who runs into a Vanillas, it's just like, the Vanillas are simply established to be on a different level than most beings. Like, the only people who actually like stood up directly to the Vanillas and usually won without like legitimately cheating is the cheat characters. Like, the Magi themselves are usually what's required to take down a Vanillas. Because let's look back. The only reason Morgiana lost against those thieves is because she got poisoned. That ain't her fault. The moment she got any relative coherence about herself, she broke free. They literally have to be trained from birth to not break free, or else they're literally the strong. Like, the fact that the Vanillas don't rule the world it's kind of shocking to me. Like, I understand there are king vessels and stuff out there that wield the metal vessels. Look at Mu. I feel like if Mu had more Magoi, the series would be over. Like, if Mu actually had like magician tier amounts of Magoi, the series would just be done. But yeah, I just love the Finials. They're superhuman, they're dangerous, they're monsters. I'm still gonna talk about them more clearly in another video, but that's it. That's my top 5 races. What do you guys think? Do you think the Goi should have been higher? Something tells me, like, in the back of my mind's itching saying the Goi should have been higher, but as you know, I try to not do so much character and more so what they could do, what their abilities are as a race. I don't know. I maybe, see, this is very much a list that's also like fundamentally able to change a lot depending on what my mood is on a certain day. But I want to know what you guys think, so please drop your own list in the comment section down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.